Okay, I'll go to API manager related questions. Okay, API manager means, what is API manager?
API manager there is secure policies.
Right, it is a component of any point platform. Okay, whenever we don't get the answer immediately, whatever we know, for example, like if API manager is a part of any point platform, right? We can tell that, right? Okay, API manager is a component of any point platform. It helps to manage what policies, alerts, clients, and SLAs of APIs. If you don't remember everything, you can tell it allows us to manage policies and clients. Okay, right? That is a simple definition of API manager. What do you do with API manager? You will enforce policies, exactly. That's it. Now, immediately, most of the time I observed, they'll ask what is API auto discovery and what are the steps involved in it exactly. Okay, I have clearly written the steps here. If you follow, that is more than enough. See here, API auto discovery is a ID which is used to connect the application deployed on runtime to the corresponding asset in the API manager. What is the process? We'll design API specification using RAML and we'll publish it to Exchange, and then go to API manager. You'll use import option, add from Exchange, right? I think add from Exchange. You'll select the gateway. Okay, you'll select the gateway there. What is the default gateway? Embedded gateway. If they're using Flex or something, some other API, some other gateway, you'll try to use that exactly. Now you'll use the embedded regular gateway, and then you'll create auto discovery ID. You give the regular configurations there, and then auto discovery ID will be generated. Now what you'll try to do, you'll pick up that auto discovery ID and go to the Anypoint Studio application, and then create a global element called API auto discovery, and you'll give the auto discovery, and you will refer the main flow of API kit router. See, you should not randomly refer any other flow. You should refer to the API kit router flow. Wherever the API kit component is there, to that flow you need to refer the flow. Is that clear? Okay, those are the steps I have mentioned here. It is used to pair up the application in runtime manager to the asset in API manager. Then only your policies will be applied to your main application through gateway. See, publish the API specification from the design center to Exchange. Go to API manager, click on manage API from Exchange, fill the details and create the asset. It will be in unregistered status. Go to Anypoint Studio, then go to global elements, select discovery global element. Okay, and give the auto discovery ID and flow name in which API kit router is available. After the successful deployment of the application, the asset will become active, and whatever the policies are applied in API manager, those policies can be used. Right? I think we have seen that, right? So how the policy is getting affected and all, everything, I think, in our project classes exactly. Right? Fine. Now, immediately, if you use a gateway kind of word in the interview somewhere, immediately they may ask you what is API gateway. Okay, what are the functional of it? Exactly. See, what is API gateway? Please mention the options available for API gateway in the market. And otherwise, what are the gateways you have used? They may ask like that. You can tell API gateway is a software layer. Again, it is a software layer in between the client applications and the backend services. For example, there is a front-end app, mobile application. Okay, there is a backend database. On backend database, there is a API. There is a again another layer called API gateway in between front-end application and API. I'm telling that one. Okay, API gateway is a software layer that acts as a single entry point for API calls. I told you, right? It will act as a security guard. What is the traffic coming to your house? It will first validate if everything is proper, then only it will send inside the house. Okay. Okay. Now one person came, delivery person came in, checked it. The security guard checked the person properly and he sent inside. Whether he is allowed to the bedroom,
No, no.
that particular part who will take care of? API kit router. Okay, you got it? Gateway is taking care of main.
Main
Do you understand the difference? Okay. See, security guard, API gateway is allowing the person, delivery person to inside, but API kit router will restrict at door itself. For example, a relative has come. Security will allow. Our gate, what to say, kit router also will allow inside. Right? Got it? Okay, fine. See, that's what I'm discussing. I'll try to discuss it one go. Exactly. API gateway is a software layer that acts as a single entry point for API calls. Okay. It sits between client applications and the backend services. We provide the response rate. I mentioned that only. The key functions of API gateway are traffic management, security enforcement, request processing, response handling, monitoring, and analytics. See, we don't know anything about API gateway in MuleSoft, but still it is doing all these things in the background. Got it? What is it doing? It is doing traffic management. All requests should come to gateway, right? First, it is maintaining the traffic, right? That is thing. Security. You are applying policies on API gateway only, right? If you observe in the project classes, whenever there is a client ID enforcement violation, what happened? Did the request come to the logs of the application? No. Gateway itself has rejected it. It means that gateway also will do some validations and logs will be there for that. Exactly. Got it? Okay. Now, request processing. Request is coming, it is processing, right? To some extent, it is validating it and it is doing some part, right? Exactly. And then response handling. Again, from the application, it will receive the response and then it will redirect the response to the actual consumer. Got it? Okay. And monitoring and analytics. The same way we have our Cloud Hub to monitor, right? Any point monitoring to monitor and see the analytics. The same way for API gateway also, you'll have monitoring and analytics. But MuleSoft has, in my experience, even I haven't used that particular part, embedded gateway for embedded gateway. Okay. But if you use a separate gateway means I told right, APJ, there are so many, COM, TIC, these are the common gateway services. Even AWS is providing gateway services exactly. If you really require a separate gateway, most of the organizations go for a separate gateway also. And again, that is a different subject altogether, and you need to have more knowledge there. Got it? Okay, that's what I have written here. APJ, MuleSoft Embedded Gateway, MuleSoft Flex Gateway. Okay, Flex Gateway I told you, right? What is a Flex Gateway? Individual gateway for MuleSoft applications. Exactly, they have given a separate option. Kong gateway, TIG gateway are some of the possible options. But you can tell that I don't have any knowledge on this. I have used only MuleSoft Embedded Gateway. Is that clear? Yes. Okay. Now, did you hear the word proxy?
Yes.
Okay. What is the meaning of it? Hmm?
It is also one type of layer security.
Yeah. Proxy means what? For example, one person is there. For that person, I am a proxy. It means that I look similar. Almost everything will be similar, but there is no originality. But actually, right? I look like him, but there are certain characteristics which are different. Exactly. Right? Normally, in the real-time language, exactly. The same way here also. For the actual API, we'll have a proxy API. The actual implementation will be done by the actual API. Only certain things, maybe like policies, a little bit of request change. These kind of activities can be done by proxy API. Why do we go for a proxy API? For security purpose. For example, what happens? We are getting a request from a consumer. Directly you exposed experience API. Experience API is in the exposed layer, right? Okay, in the layer. It is in the military zone. What is military zone exactly? It is exposed to the external world. For example, main gate. Okay. If I wanted to secure that also, what I can do, I can push the experience layer to demilitarized zone. Inside main gate, there will be another gate exactly, or another layer. I'll go to DMZ layer. Okay. Demilitarized zone. Now I'll push the proxy to main. Now if there is something fishy at main gate itself, it can be reverted, right? Or it can be rejected, right? For that reason, we use proxies also. Okay. Then what is the difference between gateway and proxy? Gateway also does the same functionality, but it will be applicable for multiple APIs. It is a system, or it is a software where it can handle multiple APIs. But API proxy, it is only for one API. Is that clear? Okay. Any questions here? Yesterday someone asked me, right? For 5 years person, we'll ask these kind of questions to them. Okay. We wanted to know the difference, whether they have that knowledge or not. Exactly. Got it? Okay. Fine. Now, proxy API is an intermediary program that acts as a middleman between client application and backend service. Backend service means API again, not directly database. On database or on Salesforce system or anything, again API will be there, right? Okay. Now, in an API, the key functions of an API proxy are translate the request as per backend requirements, okay, enforce policies, route traffic. Okay, right? Got it? Now, immediately the question is, what is the difference between API gateway and API proxy? API gateway manages multiple APIs, acting as a central hub for your API ecosystem, whereas API proxy focuses on individual APIs, often used to add security or translation functionalities to existing APIs. See, if it is really required, then only they will add these layers exactly. Okay, proxy one. Otherwise, with gateway itself, it is more than one. Already MuleSoft has embedded gateway, right? But it is our responsibility to know the difference between gateway and a proxy. For example, I just wanted to show you. There are 100 APIs in our ecosystem. Okay. Now, okay. Now I need API gateway services. Okay. I can give one API gateway and it will redirect the request according to the requirement. Exactly. If I need proxy, there is no API gateway. I need to create 100 proxies. Right? Simply to understand, I'm telling you. Okay. Fine. Now, see, auto discovery any question? Yes, please.
Mahesh, can you go gateway back? That screen you were showing. I mean to say 100 requests came gateway. Backend we have a node 1, node 2, node 3, like a molecule kind of setup. We can 25 requests will go this node 1, 25 requests will go to the node
No, no,
2
no,
and
not
to
node 1 actually. This is one API. API 1, API 2, API 3 like that. I'm telling. See, node
I
1,
got
node
you.
2, again you have load balancer inside.
That means we need separate gateway in that case. Node 1 route. I need to route one
See,
API belongs to one node one
no,
node
no, no, no,
one to one mapping.
not like that, not like that. Exactly. See, here,
Recently asking this question one.
yeah. See, for example, this is transaction API. Okay, think it as transaction API. This is loyalty API. In transaction API, we have only one. That is the reason. Okay, loyalty API, I have three APIs, for example. Okay, loyalty API 2, loyalty API 3. I have resource 1, resource 2, resource 3. I have resource 1, resource 2. I have resource 1 only, no resource 2 also. Okay, one resource only. Here I have 4. I have got request for transaction API resource 1. API gateway's responsibility is to direct the request to here. Yes or no? Okay, now API gateway will try to send it to transaction API. Transaction API kit router will validate whether he has the right resource or not. Now, second request, this is first request. Second request came in loyalty API 3 R4. Now this request will go where? Here. It is going to node or it is going to the actual API? Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Is that clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Now, immediately, what will be the question? What are the different security policies you have worked on? This is the question for sure. Then already as part of our project training, what did we do? We have used almost like basic authentication, client ID enforcement, HTTP caching, rate limiting, JWT validation policies. But the same policies I have included in the interview question and answers also. And we have seen them in detail, right? Exactly. If you see JWT validation also, it took around 3 to 4 hours for us, right? Complete discussion exactly. Okay. I think, okay, this is a, see, understanding of OAuth 2.0. Okay, all these we discussed, right? Right. Yes. Okay. See, OAuth is very, very special policy. Immediately, if you don't mention OAuth 2 policy in your interview, immediately he'll ask like, did you work on OAuth 2.0? Okay. For that reason, I have discussed this particular concept in very detail. Exactly. Okay. Now, see, if you see here, what are the different policies I told? Basic auth, client ID enforcement, HTTP caching, rate limiting, JWT validation. JWT validation is related to OAuth 2.0. Exactly. Then immediately there may be a questions, possible questions like this. What is basic authentication? You should know the answer, right? Exactly. Okay. Now, it is the easiest way to secure your API. What is that? A username and password will be generated, and the same username and password can be shared to multiple partners, right? And if that consumer sends that username and password, it will be validated, and then the request is sent for further processing. The same credentials are for all consumers, right? It is less secure. Now, what is client ID enforcement? Different client IDs and different client secrets are created for different clients. For example, there are 10 consumers. I will create 10 different client IDs and client secrets. I will share each client ID with client ID client secret with each consumer. Now for each consumer, the client ID and client secret are different, right? Okay. The respective client will send his client ID, his client secret, and our API manager will validate that with the help of gateway. Okay. And then it will allow for the further process. Immediately they will ask you a question. What is the difference between basic authentication and client ID enforcement? Okay. Yes. In MuleSoft, both are for securing your API only, right? Both basic authentication and client ID enforcement secure APIs. Basic auth sends username and password directly, and the credentials are same for all consumers. It is less secure. Client ID enforcement and uses an ID and secret and offers more control. The credentials are different for every consumer. This is more than enough, right? Okay, fine. Now, What is HTTP caching policy? Even we have seen this, right? But I think it didn't work properly. Okay, but we have seen this exactly. How to apply, we have seen in the as part of the project. See, HTTP caching policy will save the responses of different requests, and if the same request is received by API, what will happen? It will not go to the end system. Instead, it will get the response from cache memory. When to go for this policy? This policy is used for those APIs whose response will not change for a long time. Right, and we have seen the example also, right, for this use case. Okay, whenever there is a frequently repeated data, okay, in that instances you can cache your API, which will increase the performance and which will reduce the load on the systems also. In that instances, if there is any possibility, we can go for HTTP caching. Yeah, any questions here?
Yeah, one thing. How it is, how it will become, it will reduce time, but how it will become security policy?
Which one?
HTTP caching, it will reduce time by saving the key and value and send response. But how it is related to security?
See, exactly. Maybe I might have missed it. Exactly. See, these are all policies only, right?
Okay, okay. It's
Different
not.
category maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Different category will be there. Maybe
Uh-huh.
controlling, limiting, this kind of. Again, there is no requirement of such classification here. That is the
Okay,
reason I
okay.
mentioned.
I'm confused. Okay, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, no, no problem, no problem. Okay, fine. Anything? Any other questions? Okay, fine. Now, what is a rate limiting policy, right? And what happens when the limit is exceeded by the consumer? What is the error code raised? See, they will not ask the same question, but I wrote all the possible questions there. I wrote all the possible questions. Based on that, if you have the answer, you will be able to answer this very easily. Okay, see here. To limit the number of calls in a certain time frame, okay, the rate limiting policy will be applied. Error response will be sent once the threshold is reached. Okay, what is error? 429, too many requests. For example, we told 100 requests per hour. If it exceeds 100 requests per hour, for 101 request, we'll receive this 429 error, too many requests. We have seen this practically also, right? After 1 hour, it will accept the request, right? Is that clear? Now, here, can we apply different rate limits for different clients or consumers as part of the rate limiting policy? Is that possible? Yes. For example, there are 5 consumers for our API. I wanted to tell 500 requests per day for one consumer, 1000 requests for another consumer, consumer 2. That way, if I wanted to define, I can define that exactly in the rate limiting policy. Got it? Okay, fine. Now,
But the thing you said is by rate limiting SLA policy, right? Not in the rate limiting specification.
come again.
We have a policy called rate limiting SLA based, right? So in that we can
Yeah,
mention the client
whether
ID.
whether it will fall under rate limiting or not exactly. See, rate limiting is a parent policy only, right? Is that
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah.
Okay, next, what is a spike control? What is it exactly? It is similar to rate limiting policy, okay, but it will keep the request in a queue once the window is reached, the time limit is reached. For example, I told you 100 requests in 1 hour, okay, it reached 100. Again, 10 requests, 10 more requests came in. It will straight away not throw the error, okay. Those 10 requests will be kept in queue. It will wait for the next window to process those 10 requests. That is known as spike control. Okay, fine. Okay, for further processing once the threshold is reached. Exactly. That's what I have discussed. Now, see, this may be Throttling means against spike control only. I think it is a old terminology used actually in the industry, I think so. But anyway, I have included that question also. What is the difference between rate limiting and throttling? Rate limiting means it will straight away throw the error exactly, okay, once the window is reached. But throttling or spike control will not throw the error. It will keep the request in the queue. Okay, see, if the request is not processed within the specified retrace, then it will raise the error. Got it? Okay, fine. Now, have you all worked on OAuth policy? Already we told, right? OAuth 2.0. If they ask you OAuth 1.0, you can straight away say, I haven't worked on OAuth 1.0, I have worked on OAuth 2.0 policy. Exactly. Okay, fine. And please explain the OAuth process. You can tell that OAuth 2.0 stands for what? Open authorization. OAuth is a authorization framework, not an authentication protocol. Exactly. It is a standard for authorization where a user allows an application to access their resources hosted on another application without sharing the credentials. Exactly. See, I think we have discussed this for 1.5 to 2 hours, right? Exactly. Already you have the information. See, try to mug up this. This is more than enough. And you can tell grant types.
Can you,
Okay. If
if
you
you don't
want,
mind, can you explain a little
come,
bit about that?
it
Normally
will
we
take
do that.
it will take time, sir. It will take time, sir. Actually, see
Okay,
here.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
see here. There are almost like 25 slides.
Okay, fine,
Okay.
fine, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. It will. I cannot summarize it in a matter of 5-10 minutes exactly. That is the problem. Otherwise, I could have told you
Mhm.
exactly. See, we have taken almost like 2 to 2.5 hours to understand this.
Okay, okay, fine. So JWT and OAuth are same, just within 1 minute.
See, I told it, right? See here. Now we'll have the questions on OAuth only for another almost like 5 to 10 questions. We'll be discussing that only. Okay,
Okay,
I
okay.
just told the explanation. What is that OAuth?
Mhm.
OAuth stands for open authorization. Okay, with
Mhm.
that, what happens? A token will be generated from the authorization server, and the authorization server, the consumer will take the token and he will pass the token along with the request. And once we receive the token, we will validate with the authorization server. Our resource server will validate the token with the help of authorization server. If it is fine, then only the request will be sent for further processing. Otherwise, it will not be sent. That is authorization. And for example, like I wanted to restrict resource for only read. Can I do that? See, for example, like this particular application wanted to access this profile details. Profile details only get, it cannot delete it or it cannot update it. I can do that also. What is that? Scope. I will define the scope. Only get access or read access for this particular Zomato application. With the help of scope, I can restrict that exactly. Got it? See, a client application will generate a token from authorization server, and that token will be passed as a request header to the resource server. Now resource server will receive the token. It will validate the access token with the help of authorization server. If it is valid, then only it will send the details. If it is invalid, straight away it will throw the error 401 unauthorized. Maybe token expired or wrong token, whatever it is exactly. I hope it should be helpful, sir. I think.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I have discussed the same here. Okay, you can elaborate also some 5 to 10 sentences here. And even I'm checking out, if I can increase this description, I'll try to increase that also and pass that later. Okay. Now, what are the different grant types in OAuth? And what is the significance of client credentials grant type? Okay. What is grant type? A method by which the access token is generated is known as grant type. There are different grant types, but most important things are authorization code, okay, client credentials, and resource owner password grant. These are the three things which we have seen as part of our discussion, I think, right? This is authorization code grant, client credentials grant, resource owner grant. We have seen three scenarios exactly, how the steps process, right? Now, three types. Each grant type has a different authorization flow, and each requirement is different. We should know when to use authorization code, when to use client credentials, when to use resource owner password grant type. Exactly. I have discussed the same. But my question is about client credentials, but I kept three answers here. Because if some other person asked authorization code, you should be able to understand, right? Exactly. Okay, fine. Whenever there is a server to server communication, okay, then opt for client credentials grant type. For example, from Zomato front end server to our resource server, Zomato backend server, right? Server to server communication is there, no involvement of the user there. Exactly, because of that reason we are trying to use client credentials grant type. The access token is generated using the client credentials. Okay, fine. I think if I can see, access token is generated using the client credentials, no ownership of resources, the data is common to everyone. Exactly, in that instances we'll go for this, and server to server communication. Now, when the ownership of resource data lies with the user on a third party app, exactly, then go for authorization code granted. For example, Geek for Geeks registration with the help of Gmail we have done, right? With the help of Gmail authorization server, Google authorization server, I am trying to tell with the help of my name or email ID, with those details which is available, my photo which is available in Google server, with these details try to create my Geek for Geeks account. In those kind of instances, we can go for authorization code. Exactly, that's what I'm telling. Go for authorization code grant type. The access token is generated using the authorization code. Okay, example, sign up using third party apps. Got it? Fine. See, next. See, whenever the ownership of resource lies with the user, okay, resource owner, and to get data on the specific user from the client app server, go for the resource owner password granted. I told a clear example here, right? Whenever Zomato user wanted to access his order history, he owns the order history resources. Exactly, and he is logged into Zomato app or Zomato web application. Exactly, in that instance, obviously we need to send the client credentials as well as the username and password to exactly get the details, and this is less secure. Okay, in those kind of instances you need to go for resource owner password granted. Got it? Okay, these are the three important things and we need to remember this. Now, what is OpenID token enforcement policy? See, an open token policy acts like again security guard for your API. It is used to secure your API. And one more question: OAuth policy, most of the time they are used to apply on the APIs which are exposed to the outside world. Exactly. For internal communication, maybe process to system, experience to process, it's not required. But there are some organizations they want to go for OAuth on all the APIs. It's their wish, but it is suggestible because again it requires a separate server. It involves so much of cost, right? If you put more number of requests on it, again resource usage is more, and obviously you will the charges and the maintenance are very higher, right? Okay, it depends on the company to decide upon it. But as per my experience, most of the time I have seen authorization OAuth will be applicable for only the APIs which are exposed. It means that experience APIs or proxy APIs. Got it? Right. Now, what is the open ID token enforcement policy? It is again a secure policy which will help to protect your API. Okay, it ensures that only requests with valid access tokens can access the API resources. But then, what is the difference between OAuth policy and this policy? In OAuth policy, I told you only authorization happens, but here authentication also happens. What is authorization? What is authentication? I told an example, right? If you remember exactly, for example, I have booked a hotel, okay, booked a hotel, and I received a booking ID, and then on the day of my stay, I went to the hotel, and immediately they'll ask for a booking ID first of all, and after I give a booking ID, what happens exactly? Immediately they'll ask for a ID proof. They are validating the user who booked it on what name, and they will check, okay, booking name is on Mahesh Reddy and ID proof is on Mahesh Reddy, both are matching. Then only they will give me the key for a specific room. Now your authentication process is over, your user identity is successful, then only you are allowed to use the room. That is called scope. Exactly, you are not authorized to use all the hotel, right? You are authorized to use only that particular room. That process is known as authorization. Validating the user is known as authentication. Okay, in OpenID token for policy, both will happen, authentication as well as authorization. But in OAuth policy, only authorization happens.
Hello Mahesh, please connect your laptop.
Yeah. Thank you. It's almost like still a 20% actually. I observed it. Yeah. Thanks for making me a note exactly. Okay. Fine. Yeah. I'll do that. Anyway, we'll take a break in some time, right? Yeah. Now, immediately you may get a question like, what is authentication? See, here I'm going a little bit deeper because I may expect now scenario based questions and what policy related questions are getting into picture, right? That is the reason. Otherwise, they will not go into this kind of questions also. You will tell as soon as maybe you'll be asked which policy you have worked on, or 2.0. Or 2.0 which policy? Derivative validation. Then explain me authentication and authorization. Okay, there may be a possibility for that question. That is the reason I'm trying to explain the things again once again. Okay, fine. Now, what is authentication? Already I told, right? Authentication is the process of verifying a user's identity. Okay, the right consumer is coming inside our application or not. Exactly, I'm trying to verify that. That process is known as authentication. Okay, and authentication happens at the authorization server only, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Authorization can protect resource. Okay, what is authorization? Authorization is process of granting permission to perform specific action. Okay, you are allowed to open the key of 401 room. You are not allowed to use 402, 403 or any other rooms. Maybe you are allowed to use the gym facility, swimming pool facility, which you are allowed to use. That's it. Restaurant, because they are common to each and every person. The rest other things are restricted. Exactly. That restricted access is known as authorization. Exactly. Okay, the dance typically, authorization. To yeah, in OAuth 2.0, authorization occurs after authentication. First, it will be verifying the authentication and then only goes to authorization. Okay, because in the initial validation itself, he is not the right user. We'll reject the request, right? That is the reason first authentication will happen, then authorization will happen. Okay, the scope of authorization determines the level of access the client application has to users data. Exactly. Fine. I told you, right? Get only, not delete or update. Facebook one, if you observe here. Restricting the access of these profile details to only get. is known as authorization. Now, what is OAuth 2.0 dance? Okay, already we know, right? What is that? What the OAuth dance, also known as OAuth flow. We'll call it as OAuth flow also. Refers to the series of steps involved in the OAuth to authorization process. Exactly. The dance typically involves redirecting the user to the authorization server to grant permission, exchanging the token, and utilizing the access token to access protected resources. These series of steps are known as dance or flow. Exactly. I'm telling the same thing in a little bit presentation manner there. Exactly. Okay, if it is difficult to say those words also, try to simplify that. That is fine. No problem. The series of steps happening between the actors for accessing the token and validating the token is known as OAuth dance. That's fine. That is also okay. Okay, got it? Now, what is the policy we applied for our experience API? JWT validation policy. See here. What is JWT stands for? JSON Web Token. Exactly. Okay. And this policy is mostly used to secure experience APIs as they're exposed to the clients. Right? And it skips the step of why JWT validation, not OAuth exactly. See, every time whenever you receive a token, what is the step we are trying to do? We are trying to send the token to authorization server and getting it validated, because the token will be saved in a database of this authorization server. Exactly. And whatever the token we sent, and it will retrieve the token, it will validate, and then it will send back the response to our response server saying that it is okay, you can proceed the request. Now for example, like there are 1 lakh requests every day coming in. Okay, 1 lakh times you need to communicate with the authorization server, which is very costly, right? Honestly speaking. Okay, for doing that or for eliminating these steps, exactly, we are trying to follow JWT validation policy. Okay, JWT validation policy, what are we trying to do? We are trying to take a certificate, a key, which is helpful to identify the token and verify the token. Exactly. Now we'll eliminate these steps. Okay, that is the reason we are following JWT validation policy. Okay, see here, JWT stands for JSON Web Token. This policy is used mostly to secure experience API as they are exposed to the clients. It skips the step of verifying the access token with the authorization server every time. Okay, it looks for a JSON Web Token typically included in a request header or a parameter. Exactly. Now the policy verifies the JWT's signature. Already we know, right? What does JWT consist of? Self-contained JSON object. 3 parts: header, payload, and signature. See here. Whenever we decode that, header is there, payload is there, and signature is there. Okay. We are telling the same here. Verifies the JWT signature using a secret key. Already we have a key, right? With the help of JWKS key set, we are trying to get the key from authorization server one time, and we'll cache it. We'll remember it for 1 hour or 2 hours or 1 day exactly. With that, we are trying to verify the signature in the token. Exactly. And if the signature is valid, the policy might also check the claims. What is claims exactly? Whatever information is available in the body, that is known as claims. Okay, this information also it will verify. Once it is verified, then only it will process the request to further processing. Okay, see here, if the signature is valid, the policy might also check the claims within the JWT to ensure they meet certain requirements. If the JWT is valid and claims meet the criteria, the request proceeds. If not, access will be denied. Okay, fine. Any question?